You're listening to Until They Sleep, a podcast where two parents finally get to sit down and discuss all the different things that run through their heads every day because their four kids are finally asleep. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Until They Sleep. I'm Chantel, and I'm joined by my husband, Daniel.
Hola. Episode 51, everyone. Thank you. What do you want to talk about? What's going on? Talk to me.
Yeah, is there anything that's happened with you lately that you want to talk about?
No,
before we start?
No, I'm good. Thank you, guys. No, I'm good. Boring life. Very, very chill week. Nothing drastic. Nothing crazy.
Rainy day today.
Oh yeah, it was a good rainy day. It feels cold as hell. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm getting cold. Like right now. Ooh, wearing a nice little.
I know he's
jacket.
all bundled up and he's got hot coffee, and I'm over here like with cold water and. Well, we're talking about we've been watching different TV shows and movies lately, and we've had some conversations about them.
Oh yeah, so we kind of wanted to bring people into what's going on with that part because it's actually created, like good conversations amongst us, like you and me, and also with the kids.
They saw two of the three things.
Two of the things you want to talk about. Okay, well, yeah, let's hit it.
I guess Echo's the first thing on my list.
Nice.
We
let's go.
binge watched Echo.
Yeah. So Echo came out. I want to say 2 weeks ago now, maybe 3 if you're whenever you listen to this. Real quick, it's one of those Marvel anti-heroes. She was introduced to us on the Hawkeye about a year ago during the Christmas one, right? And it was pretty awesome for me when we first saw it because there was a character that uses ASL and at the same time is Native American. So that was a double for me because those are things that you usually don't see, especially in comic book movies, shows, whatever. There's always the dominant, perfect like beings, right? Like I think that's why like mutant superheroes were so popular because they were different and there were different cultures and different beliefs and everything. So I think that's why it became a big deal.
Okay.
And so for me, it was awesome to see ASL being used, and it made it kind of like a tearjerker and emotional to see it because, well, our daughter uses some ASL.
Yeah.
And it started a conversation with the family. And now here we are a year later, and it came out.
Echo
came out, and it's a spinoff of that, and they kind of cover it really quick from the Hawkeye show. I was kind of concerned because they were saying that it was going to be a TVMA. Not kids won't be able to watch it. You have to change your settings on your profiles to see it. It's going to be available on Hulu. So usually, if something comes out on Hulu, it's because it's going to be not for kids, right? Because Disney doesn't want to put it on their platform. Mm-hmm. But they did on both. So I was like, all right, well, I was kind of worried about what was going to happen. But the day it came out, I know I texted our daughter and I told her, hey, don't forget to watch this show. Mm-hmm. And I know as I was driving home, I got a text back saying they're deaf. Mm-hmm. So she must have forgotten. But that was as far as I got to talk to her about it.
I agree with you that it was cool to see a whole show. Remember there was that other show that was dedicated to ASL. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, the one with the girls got swapped, right?
Yes, at birth.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Swapped at birth, wasn't it?
I don't remember. Maybe.
I have to find out,
but that was the first time we saw a full ASL TV show, at least in our times, because I think there was one before, like in the 70s.
Marlee Matlin.
Yeah, that did a deaf movie.
And she was in that show.
And she was in the show that
it
we're
was
talking
called
about.
Switch at Birth.
Switch at Birth.
Yeah.
And so it was nice for us because these were shows that our daughter, our now 21-year-old, could relate to, right? So now with this Echo show, it's just one more, and on top of it, she's a badass, So for me, honestly, it's a little heart-wrenching because here's a person with disabilities who is so confident in herself and she she doesn't just have the deaf disability, but she literally is missing a foot, a whole, like half her
Lower
leg,
leg, yeah.
her lower leg. So you see that she's better than most people around her, and it just makes me sad for
Right.
our daughter, because she's not incapacitated in any way. Like, she's not handicapped and at that level at all. She has all her limbs and everything. It's just the lack of motivation.
Yeah, but she's handicapped on her brain. That's where you keep on.
I
You keep on taking that
understand.
away
I
from it.
understand, and we have very different points on this. You and your ex have a very different view on it versus me, outsider looking in, taking care of her and dealing with her in a different way. I have a very different outlook on her that we've never agreed
Right.
on. So for me, I see that there was a lot of potential loss there over the years.
Oh no, yeah, she could.
And
She could. I think she could have been a little bit better than what
and that's my
she
point.
has,
So
yeah.
to see this
But
character who's so
I still don't take
badass
away
and
the
strong,
credit from her of what she's achieved, because I mean, technically speaking, like the fact that she walks and she talks and she does all these things, those are things that
I
per
completely
statistics and per her
understand.
brain handicap, she's not supposed to be able to do. She's not supposed to. She's supposed to be brain dead. Like,
Well, that's what the doctors told you guys when she was born, and that
No, it's
clearly
happened.
it clearly didn't happen because she
exactly.
developed.
No, but you weren't in the meetings. You weren't there in the beginning.
I
like you didn't
understand.
go through all that stuff that we went through for the first couple of
And
years.
I understand that it must have been frightening,
Yeah.
right?
So,
it was
but when I try to explain to you, you always have to like argue about like, no, it could have been more. When I was like, no, like you don't understand like what we were told, what we went through, like what was everything that went to was like, so what we have right now, it's awesome and it's great, and I am thankful for that. But of course, yes, everybody always has a better capability of doing more. It's not just her. Like, of course, she could have done it
that's
better.
my
Yeah.
point. She wasn't pushed enough to be better.
No. Yeah.
And that's my point, is here is a character who is better than she was because she was pushed.
Right. But
Because she had that family support.
yeah, there was a big family support in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a big family support, but then again, on the like Native community, they're pretty together, like right. The family is family.
Well, yeah, and like the whole family learned sign
The whole
language.
family, yeah,
and,
exactly. So that was the one thing I was gonna say. I was like, I thought that was beautiful how the family support, right? One person was deaf, and like everybody in the family learned to be able to communicate with the family member. Now, she was raised by her dad, so there was no input from the mom's family. There was no nothing, right? Like the dad was raised and the decisions were made, but the family was already prepped because of her mother being deaf. She was a Dakota, which is called child of a deaf, adult. So she grew up with another deaf person in her house and the family that knew how to communicate with that. But it was awesome for her mom because the whole family, like you said, was supportive. The whole family was a part of it. And on our daughter aspect, there was a lot of split decisions on it, right? Because it was like from the mom side, it was more auditory, right? Everybody wanted the hearing aids and maybe talk about cochlear implants and talking and teaching her to read lips and everything. While us, when we barely saw her, and the fact that I was going to school and I got to meet deaf people and I was learning about deaf cultures. And then you were learning it with me too, because you helped me with my homework and you were reading with me the books. And then you also studied it. And we kind of saw and we heard from other people, how much it means to try to communicate with somebody who's deaf, right? Mm-hmm. So we were going more into learning the sign language. Mm-hmm. So there was a difference between the households, right? And she was a little girl and we would talk about it. It's like, hey, you don't have to wear your hearing aids here. My teacher told me that he used to bury his hearing aids when he was a kid because his dad forced him to do it. To this day, he will never use them, because it gave him headaches and it gave him migraines. And that was a common thing with her that she had. Mm-hmm. So, but she kind of grew up split. And it made us feel bad because we're like, look, she had the full family support and look at how good she's doing. She kept on thriving and succeeding and becoming a total badass. And with ours, it's more of a split thing. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a full support.
Which is my point. My point was simply that it just reminded me of how important the family support is to help people with any type of disability impairment, whatever you want to call it, where they don't have full function of all their senses or full function of all their limbs, that how important the family support and even extended family, just a whole circle of people in that family, how important that support is to elevate the self-confidence of that person. And I feel that because of the split dynamic within our households, she doesn't have that I can do whatever I want attitude. And it just makes me sad. That's all it is. That's all I was trying to say. It just makes me sad. Like I was happy to see this example of someone, and I'm glad that maybe there are some other individuals out there that this movie could motivate. Mm-hmm. So that's all.
It does get brought up about ASL with other people in a person's life.
Yeah,
it gets thrown in their face.
Yeah.
So that's another place where I was going with it. Like they're like, hey, you've been in my life how many years? How
and you
long?
never bothered to learn it.
Yeah, you never bothered to learn it, right? So it's another thing that shows about love and support.
Yeah.
Right. So that I agree with what you're saying. Also, I just wanted to clarify some things.
Which makes me feel bad because we don't all speak ASL. I speak the most ASL out of everyone in the household, including yourself. And I think we've touched on this subject before.
I speak it, but I'm not as fast and fluent as you guys.
You say it's because she's not around, which I agree. We don't practice with each other at home, and we haven't forced the kids to learn it, just like we also haven't forced the kids to learn Spanish. So it's...
I think the kids know more ASL than Spanish. They have the little books that we're all introduced to them as little kids that you bought, and they like them, they enjoy them. They might not practice it often, but every once in a while when they rediscover them, they sit there and they go through them again.
Yeah, they definitely have been exposed to ASL. As far as like looking at pictures and reading about it, that is definitely, since they were very little, we have those type of books available here because I bought all those things for the 21-year-old when she was little. So yes, in that sense, our kids have a bigger exposure to that. Whereas Spanish is just what they hear us speaking at home, not necessarily written, or pictures, as it has been with the ASL. But they try. They do their best. They'll ask questions like, hey, how do I say this to her? And then we tell them. Or, they just make sure she's looking at them so that she can read their lips. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And because she'll keep her hearing aids off. Yeah. So, and that's...
But I'm pretty sure that's more ASL than she gets elsewhere.
I mean, I don't know, because she's told me that her mom speaks ASL to her all the time. So,
oh, cool. Yeah,
I guess she's taken classes and
stuff.
I've
never seen it, so yeah. So that's cool.
That's what she told me, but nobody else. Only her mom.
I know her and her sister used to speak ASL all the time.
When they were younger.
And they used to also have their own type of...
sister language,
mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Which is another thing I was going to talk about. There's another show that I watched and I kind of rewatched recently, which is The Boys. And there's a character in there that doesn't speak. And she's from like a third world country, and she grew up with a brother, and they have their own sign language.
Yeah, it's just their own.
It's their own sign language. Yeah, it's like their own made up. But there's a character in there that's like completely in love with this character, and he's like, he goes to the point where he goes to the brother, but let's just say it's a girl and a boy brother, but one's a bad guy and the other one's a good one. And they have him as a prisoner, but when he has him as a prisoner, instead of like trying to get information or torture him or whatever, now he's like, "Can you teach me
how to talk to your sister?"
How to talk to your sister? Like, she means so much to me.
Yeah, that's funny.
That I want to be able to say something in her language, so she so that she feels that there's a connection between us. And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah,
because that's another way of how much do you love a person.
But that's the point, right? Like, even within a family, right, if you don't take the time to learn the language to communicate with that one person, and instead you're trying to force them to be like you, that's not love.
Yeah, because it makes it easy, right?
Yeah,
it's easy.
You're just doing what's easy for you and your family, or you and those around you.
Yeah,
because whatever reason.
And it's also the mentality of like, well, you know what? They're gonna be around this. Maybe maybe if she's exposed to it, or they're exposed to, not sure, let's not say she, but let's say, because I'm sure other families think like that, is like, well, she's gonna be around this, she's gonna grow around this. Maybe it'll be easier for her, like, to try to listen, or him or her to listen and just learn to read lips, because that's how the world is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, it's kind of like, well, yeah, it's just like you want her or him to adjust to you.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you also try to adjust to them, to facilitate, to be that middle,
Yeah.
that connecting part, right?
Well, and especially nowadays, there's so many resources for the deaf and hard of hearing.
Right.
So
But
it's not like it's impossible for them to live normal lives. There's there's schools dedicated only to the deaf and hard of hearing. There's, I know they have the mainstream and they have classes and stuff like that. It's just not the same though as those specialty schools.
yeah, and the other thing is that, like we were saying, there are people that it's another language.
It is another
It's just
language.
another language,
Yeah.
because some people could be deaf, but that's it. That's all. So everything else is still the same. They're fine. They're normal. They think fine.
Yeah.
But it's another language, right? So it's kind of like, if you're willing to learn a couple of freaking words in Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
right, to order something when you got to eat, like, why wouldn't you try to learn a little bit of ASL? And it's funny because it's even on the name, right? ASL meaning American Sign Language. So if you're one of those people that are like, oh, I'm a hardcore American, then do you know all your languages in America, right?
Yeah,
Like,
because
do you
American
know?
Sign Language is an American
Yeah,
language.
right. So
yeah.
if you know English, but you should also know a little bit of ASL, right? So
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with learning it or teaching it. I mean, it's been proven over and over again by scientists and doctors, right? Babies can't communicate, but if you teach them sign
Mm-hmm.
as babies, they develop, their brain develops so much faster, and they communicate so much better.
I do have a con for that though, because as an auditory household, and our children who aren't deaf and didn't go to deaf schools, our son, our firstborn boy, who's now 15, I did that with him, right? He was really good with the ASL. He understood the whole alphabet and he knew how to count and he understood all the words and terms, because his big sister, she was 6 when he was born. And so it was like he knew the most sign language, and he and I would practice sign language on the way to daycare every day, just for him, just for practice, right? And I think that his brain had a hard time switching to normal school. I think sometimes I'm like, I'm
It's
trying to
possible.
think why, but I was like,
It's
well,
possible.
learning more multiple languages helps him. Yeah, but I think that going from an auditory language to a manual language,
Right.
that switch was really hard for him
No,
in his
and
head.
and I agree with you right now, because as you're saying that, our second one did too. Our second one, I mean, him and me, we used sign language a lot when he was a baby. He always told me more candy, apple, fruit, and definitely, milk. He always signed milk every time. He always said he wanted to eat. He always told me when he was full. The simple stuff like that. Sometimes he would see me and he would sign for dad. He would sign for the cat, the dog. So he knew, like, little basic things like that. He would see them, point them, and that's how I knew that what he wanted. Now, where I'm correlating it right now, as you're saying that, also from my oldest one, was, and they're 4 years apart, of course, right? You know, it was when they were in school. They started school and they asked, "Do they know Spanish?"
Yeah, they assumed that the kids knew
And we're
Spanish
like,
because
no.
the kids were having a hard time picking up English.
Right, like doing certain writing
Writing it,
comprehended.
yes.
Yeah, so they were like, oh, but in sign language, everything's kind of like Spanish. Everything's backwards
Yes.
to the English language,
Yeah,
right?
so our eldest was marked as an English learner.
Right.
Because but they assumed it was because we were a Spanish speaking
Yeah,
family and we
to
weren't.
us, we were like,
We're
no,
no.
we don't speak Spanish like that much.
Yeah.
We talk to them in English because we know school's gonna be in English and everything. So yeah, we were like, what? But it didn't click until right now that we're saying this. Like, oh yeah. And I remember when I started in college taking ASL after the introduction to deaf culture and everything. When I actually started learning it, I remember the teacher saying, who here is fluent in Spanish, knows how to read it, knows how to write it? And I was like, me, you know. And then she told me, for you, signing is going to be the easiest thing because sign as if you're doing it in Spanish, like as if you're writing in Spanish or you're reading in Spanish or you're speaking in Spanish because everything's backwards. And I was like, oh, okay, perfect. So I had no problems when it came to presentations. And yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting.
Our boys, yeah, for sure. They would try. The eldest was marked an English learner, and the second one I figured out. I said no, not at all. I completely.
So you know what? You want to hear the funny thing about this? Approximately more than 500,000 people in the United States use ASL to communicate as their native language. ASL is the third most commonly used language in the United States after English and Spanish.
Okay.
So it's the number 3 language. So, I mean... So
I don't know anybody else who speaks it.
And the thing is, and I want to be honest...
uses it.
Because we're in California.
Because we're in California.
I think it's the California thing. Because I've noticed that a lot of times when it comes to deaf culture, deaf groups and everything's like Northeast, East Coast, kind of...
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of resources here for deaf.
I know in Virginia there was a beautiful,
because you have Gallaudet University out there. So
that's not in Virginia. I'm gonna look it up. Gallaudet University. Yeah, it's in DC.
Oh, okay, my bad. Gallaudet University in DC. But
But
that's
that's
not far from Virginia. It's like right there, hop skipping away.
Yeah, for a Californian, yeah, I guess.
Well, I mean, come on. You told me you used to drive to DC all the time. For
No,
concerts.
I went to a couple concerts and a couple football games, but baseball games. But it was still a drive.
You made it seem like it was no big deal.
For me, because out there in the East Coast, everything it's just on the road. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
That's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing.
But up here, when you're like in California and you have everything in your damn little cities, and people hear 30-minute commute, they're like, oh my goodness.
So
yeah.
Either way, yeah, Gallaudet University is a university that is for the deaf. And then here in Riverside, there's a school for the deaf.
Mm-hmm. A really good lacrosse team.
Yeah, with a really good lacrosse team, yes. So no distractions. Anyways, that whole point is that we watched Echo and, we...
Yeah, it was awesome. The kids really enjoyed it, actually. We let them watch it. Yeah, there's some fighting, there's some blood, but they see that on action movies, so I don't see what the big deal was. But yeah, I know the kids went actually to look at their ASL little books really quick, and they were like, "Yeah, these ones really beat up. I think we need new ones." But yeah, it's awesome. It comes in handy, people. I mean, I ought to have it. I know sometimes there's times when you sign out of nowhere. I know I end up signing at work sometimes when it's really loud, and I end up like giving people signs, and they're like, huh?
What the heck are you saying?
And so I'm like, hey, when you ever see me do this, it's like, that means again, or say, stop, or no, or bathroom, or like, just so you know, they're like, oh, okay. And
sometimes it's good to know when you're at work and you're, communicating with people from a distance.
Yeah.
They can't see your mouth or hear you.
Right.
It would be good for, people to know these basic things.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is, how, I don't know if you guys, if whatever other language you might speak, might be, Spanish or French or Vietnamese or Italian, and you see somebody that speaks that language and they're trying to communicate with someone else, right? And they just can't do it. And if you ever notice how when you step in and he's like, oh, how may I help you? Or can I help you translate? Mm-hmm. That look in their face of like relief and they feel like they're not alone and you're there to welcome.
Oh, yeah.
It's way better when you help out somebody with sign language. It's
because it's so rare.
Yeah, it's just it's been my experience now. I've happens to me. I want to say 2 to 3 times, and it was awesome.
You had a coworker at a previous job that.
Yes, I never expected that from this person.
But he grew up.
His mom was an ASL teacher. Yes, his mom was a teacher at a deaf school for a while too.
But they're from Alaska.
Yes. Yeah, and so that was one of the first times that I ever got to help somebody was, I guess there was a customer that was deaf, and and needed help, and that person was not there that day
Mm-hmm.
out of all the times. And I never knew because I never knew this customer, never seen him, never everything. And he was kept on asking for this person and kept on trying to communicate. And I was walking by and I saw him and I was like, do you have a translator? I was like, no. And he's like, oh, you sign? I was like, a little. And then next thing you know, we ended up having like a freaking hour and a half conversation, and he knew I was working and I was busy, and we had like an event going on, and he went out of his way and brought me a drink. By drink, I meant like a soda. Brought me lunch because we used to do cookouts and everything on the weekends, and so he made sure that he saw that I kept on working and working and working, and I took the time to help him. So he saw we weren't eating, and he brought everybody that I work with, like, snacks and lunch, and I was like very thankful. And then sometimes he would just stop by to say hi, and sometimes he would stop for help. But
But that just speaks to how rare it is,
right,
especially for individuals who speak as ASL, only ASL, for them to receive assistance from anybody or
yeah.
meet anybody who can communicate with them.
And then another time that happened to me was at a gas station. Somebody was from out of town. They were trying to get somewhere, and I was like, I saw them, and they were like trying, and I was like, they had their phone, right? But it's just trying to write and everything, and I was like, I can help you, and that was awesome. They were very thankful and everything.
That happened to me at the post office not too long ago.
You did.
Yeah, there was a lady walking up, and she looked like very flustered because they weren't open yet, and so I just signed to her and I let her know what the time they were going to open at was, because I was in line also. I was actually the first one in line, and she's like, "Oh, you sign, and why do you sign?" And so I signed back, that my stepdaughter is deaf, hard hearing, and she's like, "Oh, that's great." But that's about as far as that conversation went, because then she got a phone call, and then she was on a video chat the rest of the time. So, but
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it's awesome. So that was awesome. So
movie,
yeah, Echo
the
created.
TV show was good for that reason.
Yeah,
I mean,
so it created a good conversation between family and kids, and it
just
was
a
reminder for us.
a reminder of the importance of understanding and showing that support by learning that language.
And it actually made me want to, like, maybe we should be signing more at the house, even with her not being here. Maybe it can be like a surprise next time she comes over, if she ever comes over. That
I don't know. I feel so torn with that one, because I think they're gonna. I mean, as much as I would like them to learn ASL, yeah, she's almost never here. I know that that's something that they can learn in college, and on their own time. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Spanish is something I think we need to be pushing. We can try pushing both, but we haven't pushed either one to this point.
Oh no, I have been pushing it, but
the Spanish.
It's just a fight. I mean, you guys remember many episodes of back when I was having a fit about Latin over Spanish, but whatever.
Well, and okay, so enough of Echo. We also saw La La Land finally. I know, we're way behind because that movie came out a long time ago.
Let's be honest. There's anybody that knows me or has gotten to know me in the last 50 episodes. Are you guys actually surprised that I have not watched that freaking movie? Like, what about me has ever told you that I will go out of my way to watch this movie?
La La Land. So we've never seen it before, and we finally saw it the last 2 weeks.
And I did it for the girls. Yeah, I was like, hey, girls.
Yeah, he put it on for the girls, and the girls didn't even watch it.
Yeah.
All the kids dispersed, and you and I were watching it.
Real quick. So the reason behind it was like, the girls were running around. They were being really loud, and I was like, oh, man, no. And so, Barbie, our baby, fell in love with Ryan Gosling. Started calling him one of her boyfriends. So then I was like, hey, this is a movie with Ken right here. And our other daughter, the 7-year-old, she loves Gwen Stacy. So we're like, hey, look, she played Gwen Stacy in one of the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Who she just really recently watched the old Spider-Man movies and the new Amazing Spider-Man movies. So she was like, oh, really? Yeah. I was like, and I think it's about dancing and singing, which is things that both girls like. Mm-hmm. So we're like, maybe they'll come down and watch this. And so started playing it. And like you said, next thing you know, they were gone and we were watching it.
Yeah.
But by we, I mean you, myself, and both our boys.
Yeah, and the boys. So I mean, the 11-year-old in particular, he was literally on the sofa, like he had sunk into the sofa, and I didn't even know he was there half the time, but he never moved from the
Right.
sofa. He
Yeah.
was watching it, and the 15-year-old, he kept coming in and out of the room, and he'd stand there and watch it for a little bit, and then he'd walk away, and then he'd come back and watch it some more. And the girls just were running around; they weren't even paying attention. But I guess it's our guilty pleasure that we like musicals.
I don't like musicals.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
We like certain musicals. Sweeney Todd, Phantom of
That's
the
different.
Opera.
That's Phantom of the Opera's on its own
They're
different
still
level.
musicals.
Yeah, it's got King Leonidas on it. Or Dracula 2000, whatever you want to call him. He's in it. I gotta,
Yeah, well, but it's still a musical, and we all enjoy it thoroughly. So is Nightmare Before Christmas. It's technically
That
a
is
musical.
technically a musical. You're right. That is a musical.
And so is The Corpse Bride. And so on and so on and so on. So many movies that we enjoy are actually musicals. And
Agree to disagree.
I mean, I actually enjoyed La La Land. Like, I was crying like through like the
All right,
whole
you touched
ending
it.
part.
I wasn't even gonna bring it up.
I was crying throughout the whole last part of it.
Yeah, you were bawling.
I
You
was,
were
oh my
bawling.
gosh, it was a horrible ending.
So I hope most of you have seen this. It is apparently pretty damn old movie.
It's an old movie, yes.
New to us.
It's new to us. It's old.
Spoiler alert. It really pretty much covered our what if episodes. It's what if. There's a lot of what ifs in there.
Yeah.
The
What if we
ending.
had-
The ending pretty much gave you a what if.
Yeah.
A big what if. Big old what if. Like just straight out in your face what if. Like this is what if. Take this what if. Yeah, wouldn't you like this what if? Well, guess what? This is a real musical and you don't get a happy what if. And therefore my wife was crying and she got really emotional and we were kind of surprised by it, especially my 15-year-old and myself. We were looking at it. It was like, what this Klingon? I mean, this Vulcan is crying? Like, why is she crying? What was that? And then, we started making jokes, my son and me. He's like, probably thinking about, some ex-boyfriend or something.
And then I hit him with a broom. I say, I'm thinking about you, stupid.
But it also kind of covered what are we willing to do what are we willing to sacrifice to make our dreams come true, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people sacrifice love
Right.
to make their dreams come true.
And on the other half of all that people, no, sacrifice their dreams for
Yeah,
the ones
that's
they
true.
love.
That's true.
So
It goes both ways.
yeah, so
It goes both ways.
So I guess it's one of those: be happy with what you have and what you've done, and just don't live in the what ifs.
Yeah. It's about not regretting the path you do choose.
It just reminds me of I always keep on saying, like I don't like to dwell on the what ifs.
Yeah, but
I mean, I'm not gonna be a liar and say that you don't kind of think about it really quick at times.
yeah, I think it's just human nature for things to pop into your head every now and then.
But I really have to remind myself that there's no point for that. Like, I really hate living in the what ifs. I used to live
But
on it a lot.
you're not living in a what if. You mean
No.
you don't like to think about?
Yes, I don't like. That's giving it. That's giving it life. That's giving it time and energy.
Well, again, but if it just pops into your
I'd
head out
rather
of
not.
nowhere,
I'd rather not. My life is the way it is for a reason. The path, the decisions that left me to where I'm at.
Yeah.
And where it is, and that is it. That this is how this book is going. I cannot go back and flip the pages. And but like always, the saying is, do not look back. You are not going that way.
well, but
That's
it's
my-
not a matter of
that's my
going.
anchor.
It's not a matter of going back. Okay, so in certain situations and certain life choices that people make that send them down a certain way, there's a point, if they're truly unhappy, there's a point where you are supposed to analyze the what ifs and figure out how can you deviate back onto that path somehow.
If
It's
you're
not a
really,
matter of
if you're
walking
really
back.
unhappy at where you're at, then realize what led you to get to that unhappiness.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but walk away from it, get your lesson, and go a different path and do what you have to do.
That's what I just said. I'm saying.
No,
you
you're saying you go back to analyze it.
No. That is not what I'm saying. You don't go backwards. It's not like go back and get with someone, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying you analyze the mistakes you made and then figure out how to deviate back onto the path that you were on. So like, let's say you hit rock bottom because you just decide to give up on life, and then you're just down this spiraling, catastrophe of life. And then you finally decide to analyze your life, and you're like, okay, all right, well, that's where I messed up and I need to get back on that path. So what can I do now to get back on that path so I can be happy again? And then that's where your self-analyzation and release and letting go of the past and all that stuff comes into play so that you can get back into the path that you're supposed to be on. I'm not, no point saying go back and, oh, woe is me. I'm saying that's what gets people into that slump. That's what gets people, like, dwelling on that is what gets people in a slump. Remembering the past every now and then, there's nothing wrong with that. It's only if you're, like, at rock bottom and you're regretting your life that it's an issue. But then you can't go back.
Oh, baby, you got some issues there? You got some stuff that you regret there? It sounded like...
No. What? I don't regret anything. I'm fine where I'm at. We both made decisions a long time ago that led us down a different path, and we corrected, and now we're together. So, I mean, I'm not unhappy. I mean, people might listen to us and think that we're unhappy, but I'm not. Maybe they'll think I'm crazy, and they might think you're crazy, but I'm not unhappy. I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about people in general, and just that you're saying that I'm talking about going back into the past. No, at no point am I saying that. I'm saying analyze, correct, and move forward.
All right. Well.
All right. That was La La Land.
Yeah.
And then the last one is like a 2-part.
This one's really going to piss me off. If you guys think I've been a little passionate about the other ones, that's how this one had me, like, I was hooked. Like, I needed to watch this. Like, I needed to know what was happening. And it was even harder because I was like, I am not Googling this. I want to be shocked and surprised of what the hell is going to happen. I don't want to know anything. I didn't tell people I was watching this because I didn't want
anybody to tell you.
I didn't want to listen to any other podcast or any other specials or apparently anything about this. We started watching it on Peacock, and it was a TV show, and it was the second season of, and yeah, I just didn't want to. So,
are you gonna say?
No, I'm leaving that for you. Oh. You cover it because this is like your thing. Like you introduced me to the first season, to that stuff I listened to because of you.
Well, he's talking about Dr. Death. So we saw both seasons of Dr. Death. The first one was definitely one of those like. Come on. Like, how are people still believing this guy, type of thing. Like, and then we started analyzing. And for those of you who haven't seen Dr. Death, again, spoilers, he was book smart.
Yeah, he was a book smart guy.
He was one of those book smart people. He knew the theory, but he was horrible at practicing it.
Right. So I heard this originally on a podcast when my wife was listening to it. I think it was one of the times that she's working. She listened to one of her podcasts, and they're talking about the doctor that was from season 1 of Dr. Death. And I was listening to this, and I was like, no freaking way that this guy was hacking up people during surgery like that. Like that's so crazy. And how do they go so long to doing it, right? And then we saw the show. We started watching the show when it first came out, and then that's when we were like, "Yeah, he's a book smart person. Mm-hmm. Like he was really good. Like he was enticing." And
he knew what he was talking about.
And I started looking him up and reading articles, and yeah, like most of the people said that he had a charm. Like he convinced people. Like there's people that still believed in him even after he fucked them up. Mm-hmm. It was like, And so I was just like, oh man.
I
And
mean, but it's just like that charisma, that self-confidence that he had because he knew that he knew it. You know what I mean? Like he knew what he was doing. He knew how to explain it. He knew how to make people feel good about it because in theory everything he said was perfect. But when it came down to actually performing the surgeries, he was crap. He didn't have enough practice. He just wasn't good at it. He just didn't know how to apply all that knowledge. And there's just people in life like that, right? There's just in every career, you've got those people who excel at the theory portion of it, but can't apply it.
yeah.
They get super high paying positions because they can pass a test. But when it comes to showing what they know manually, they can't. They just can't hack it. And that ruins them eventually.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, smart guy, charismatic. But it's funny because my wife and me always have to psychoanalyze everything. We're always trying to be like, hey, this is a narcissist, right? Like this is an egocentric kind of person, right? Like this is because the first season it was about Christopher Dunst, right? And the whole time this guy can never admit when he was wrong, that he did something wrong. He always put the blame on someone else. Yeah, I was like, look at my wife and be like, is that a narcissist right there?
Some would say it's an alpha male.
I guess, yeah, I guess so. Right.
And the way he would stare people down,
right,
that
right.
look like I'm gonna kill you for what you're saying, or watch your back. Like
at first, I thought my wife was really into that show because one of her childhood boyfriends was in it.
Who?
Christian Slater.
Oh yeah.
See that? Oh
I love
yeah.
Christian Slater.
So yeah, but then I was like, no, I remember the podcast. I remember you listened to this podcast.
Yeah.
And she's like, I did. I was like, yeah, you did. I remember this.
I had listened to that story before, so I was familiar with his story.
Yeah, but then again, like for me, it was that first season was a little scary because I was like, he's working with bones, doing everything, which for me, I'm like, I'm never gonna get surgery done. I don't care how bad I limp, how bad I pop. Like I just don't want to do it. And then after seeing this guy doing this stuff to people and hearing the cases and everything, I was like, nope.
I mean, but you got the other two doctors that were really good doctors, and they knew what they were doing, and they would never do. I guess it's just the whole idea of like, how do I know that my doctor's really as good as they say he is,
Yeah, and now I never saw Dawson's Creek, but I know it was a big deal when we were growing up, and I was like, man, this guy from Dawson's Creek really turned evil.
Yeah, I didn't get into Dawson's Creek back then, but I was familiar with it.
I mean, I don't, because obviously I can't even tell you the name of the character.
I don't remember his
but
name.
I know. I mean, there was posters and commercials everywhere about this damn show, so I know he was in it.
Well, yeah, it's scary, in the sense of surgery and stuff. You don't know, like you really don't know people, and if you really don't know people, how in the world do you know a doctor, right? Because they come so highly recommended, and then they mess you up.
Yeah, and it's just the way that they bullshit themselves on the board too. Like, oh, this happened, and then they just. Like that doctor, he was book smart. He knew what to say, what was going on. He could explain it and everything. They're like, well, no, everything he's saying makes
It's perfect
sense. Yeah, but
he's saying the right thing.
But the doctors were like, no, man, like we're seeing him do this and do that, and
and not just the doctors, his assistants.
What tool would you use to do this? It's like, who the hell asks for this or does that? And that's like, as a viewer, you're even though they're actors, like they're doing a good job, obviously, because they got your attention. You're doing this, but you're like, yeah. Like a doctor would know, like kind of like a mechanic, right?
Yeah.
Or an interior designer, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you know the tools of your trade.
yeah. So like,
And
you're
he
like,
didn't.
yeah, like who the hell will paint this wall pastel when you know that it's this, whatever your thing is, if you're a chef, it's like, why would you dice it when you're supposed to chop it, or you know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
yes.
There's everything's an art, and there's a craft to doing that art. So why? Yeah, so it was interesting for
It was
that.
baffling, right?
Now,
it's just baffling.
Season 2.
Season 2.
This is this is the shit that I was just like,
Oh, wait. How much time in jail? Do you remember?
yeah, life with 30 years minimum. Yeah.
Okay, so that one wasn't as upsetting as this next one.
No, I mean it was still upsetting to me. I was like, that was messed up what he did. And you know what makes it worse? Like he screwed his best friend over, and then once he knew he messed up with people,
He avoided them.
he avoided it, and he
But
avoided them.
that's a typical narcissistic thing to do. Like you point the finger at someone else, and then you messed up.
Yeah,
You
but you know,
avoid
like
that person.
he made his best friend like paralyzed from the neck down,
Yeah.
and he's like, oh, hey man, what did you do? Like, what's going on? And he's like, you made a complaint to the doctors, and now they're coming after me. How could you do this? And he's like, I was like, dude, how could you do that to your best friend? Like, you knew what you were messing up on purpose because you enjoy.
But that's the thing is, I don't know that he enjoyed it. I literally think he was just a dumbass when it came to practicing.
No, I think he enjoyed it because he
Do
was
you?
maiming them. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, like they said, the tools that they're using. Maybe he just loved like holding that and chopping it up and
Sometimes
cutting
I think
nerves
he just
and.
didn't know. I don't know. I don't know what to think because I wasn't there. I just know what I've been presented by
Well,
this show and
Minimum
what
30
I've
years
heard.
life.
Okay.
So good. I hope somebody maims him in freaking prison.
Well, okay. Now, Dr. Death season 2.
Doctor.
You go ahead and take the reins on this one since you
No.
feel so passionately
No.
about it.
I'll let you talk. I'll put in what I do. The season 2 is about Dr. Paolo Macchiarini. I always want to say Machiavelli.
Well,
This asshole. Tell us about this jerk.
this guy, again, charismatic, narcissistic, and he great con man. Like this was the opposite of what Dr. Dunch or Surgeon Dunch was. This guy actually knew what he was doing. Like he knew the theory and he knew how to apply it.
And he was a good doctor.
He was a great doctor. Like he actually knew what he needed to do physically, manually to fix someone. And he was great at diagnosing things. And he was wonderful in that aspect. Very popular. Again, like I said, very charismatic. Knew exactly what to say, how to make people feel at ease. But he was a con man. And he would do things to get money and funding for his scientific experimentation. And instead of following the rules, he would circumvent certain regulations. And sometimes not even certain, he'd just completely skip over them. Like he didn't care. Just so that he could, and then lie about his approvals so that he could move forward with his experimentation on humans. And I don't know, we were kind of like torn on the whole like human experimentation thing, right? We were like,
yeah,
animal experimentation versus human experimentation. Like, is it wrong? Is it wrong? Because these people were terminally ill.
It is. I think it is wrong. Like definitely. I think
And at no point did he ever make a promise that they would be. Well, like he didn't lie about the fact that, like, you really hate the guy, but I'm kind of like, he never lied. Like, he told them this is experimental and it may not work. And you understand that. And the people would be like, yeah, we understand. We're dying
But
anyways.
it was so dismissive. It was so short. It was so short how he would say it because he kept on going into like, oh, wait, now when I'm done with you, you'll be able to do this and you'll be that and you'll be fine and everything's gonna
in
be
a perfect
fabulous.
world.
And you're in the best hands. Don't worry about it. That's why you came to see me and I'll take care of you and everything's gonna be fine. But it's an experimental thing, just so you know. But everything, this is why you're here with me because I am the best. And so it's kind of like, as a matter of fact, like kind of like that.
I don't feel.
But fuck that. No, he knew the shit was wrong because
yes, he did.
He knew the shit was wrong. He knew what he was doing to these people.
He did.
He just gave them false hope. So yeah, I'm dying. Okay. That's the thing. He took advantage of people that were at their last straw, that they were like, okay, I'm dying of cancer, or I have something wrong with me. I might be dying. I'm kind of terminal. I'm on my way out. If this can help me, then sure, why not? Let me try it, because they're taking advantage of somebody that wants that will to live, that wants to continue, that wants to be there for their family, that wants to see their children grow up, or be there to meet the grandchildren, so whatever you want to call it, or see their parents, or grow old, or have a life, sing to their kids, whatever. They had that hope. They wanted to continue, but he knew that this experiment didn't work. He already knew, because he already had failed attempts. So he
Yeah.
already knew, and
Yeah.
he's lying to them.
He kept
This
changing.
car is fine. There's nothing wrong with this car. It works great. And then you drive out of the dealer, and 2-3 days later, the engine blows up, and the transmission gives out.
Basically, he was cutting the terminally ill patients' lives even shorter with experimenting products that hadn't been tested before. So there was no proof that they actually
Or they were
worked.
tested on animals, but it took a little while for the experiment to fail. And they were all... So it's a tricky,
But
right?
see, and that's part of the con, though. That's how they say that he knew that it was faulty product, because he would he would speed everything up, like all the reports and the articles. He wouldn't wait the full term for the animal experiments to come back. Remember the one doctor that
Or
wouldn't...
cover it up, or do it under the rug.
Yeah.
But he's being charismatic. He's helping you out. He's being the perfect gentleman, and whatever you want to call it. Best doctor, making you feel safe, which is what doctors do, right?
Yeah.
If you're going through stuff, doctors are supposed to make you feel safe. Like, you're going to be fine. You're putting your life in their hands. And once he did it, he would disappear, because he knew the shit was going to go
But
south.
this guy was so good.
And
so
the actor
good.
does such a freaking great job, which makes it even harder, because
You just want to hate him.
I
But
am a
love him?
straight hetero male, okay? And there was moments where I was like, if I was a girl, yeah, I'll be all over this guy. He speaks German, speaks Russian, speaks Italian, speaks Spanish.
That's the
speaks
actor, because we
English.
saw pictures of the real guy. He wasn't that hot.
He's all right. But and then it's played by Edgar Ramirez. Some of you might know him. He was the new Brody on the remake of Point Break. I guess that's the best way I can put it. He's a Hispanic actor. And then Mandy Moore was in it. So that was yeah. I mean,
And she plays the reporter that
was doing the special on him.
Yeah, and then she falls for him, and she falls for his lies, only to find out that he's actually married with children.
He's a con dude.
He's a total
just
con.
cons everyone.
But they never cover what the point of conning her was.
I know, that's the one thing that bothered me.
That was the only thing it didn't cover. It's like, why the heck did he con her? Like, it's never covered, and maybe she never knew. Maybe it was never understood either in real life. Like, why her? Of all the people. Is it because she could give him good publicity? I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, is that she was the one giving him good publicity. But why try to marry her? Why move her away? Like, it was super... that whole part was super confusing. But you're really mad because of his time served after he got convicted. Or not convicted.
I mean, this guy is smart, right? He did everything overseas. Everything was done in other countries.
And he would move from country to country every couple of years.
Get fundings here, get fundings there. It'll help me experiment on innocent people and, ruin their lives. Yeah, there was a case where there was a guy that got to live a little bit more, but it wasn't a good life that he continued to live,
Yeah.
So what he did was he prolonged his suffering.
Yeah.
But that suffering was, magnified.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks. Yeah, he did. Man, I can't even remember right now how many people freaking died. I think I want to say like he did a total of like 7 surgeries, and out of those, they all died. They all died because they say that one wasn't blamed on him because the was it trachea? No,
they were tracheas.
Yeah,
they were all tracheas.
Trachea implants. One of the tracheas was removed, so they died later. But
they died after it was removed.
Yeah, but she lived longer and better after that. But because the damages were so much, she had like over 150 surgeries.
Yes, that was crazy.
Until they decided to remove that trachea, and pretty much they were rotten from the inside. But but they still couldn't pin that death on him. But it didn't matter. The only person that there where he got found guilty or whatever was in Switzerland or Sweden. But he
Anyways,
only did 2 years, 2.5 years,
two and a half
two and a
years.
half years for killing a young girl. Real quick, so Paolo Macchianini is a thoracic surgeon and former regenerative medicine researcher who became known for the research and fraud and manipulative behavior. He has been convicted of research-related crimes in Italy and in Sweden. So I believe it was in Sweden, and he did 2.5 years of prison and a half. It was a pretty good show. If you guys are kind of into that stuff, I highly recommend it. I wanted to do more research when we talked about it because I really dislike this guy. I I get in the beginning I was kind of like, well, yeah, he's charismatic, he's smart, he's a good doctor. He showed he was a great doctor, but he was also a compulsive liar. Like he lied about a lot of things. He was also a narcissist. He had a way to work with people and flip things around. Um, and I'm like, wow, like amazing how he got away with some of this crap and some of the things he said. Um, it's just crazy. And apparently, I didn't know this after watching this, and I was trying to research him. And once I was in the final episode, I found out that there's a podcast, there's another special on him on Peacock with actual footage and everything about it. There's a Netflix special called Bad Surgeon. So those are things that I still want to watch. I want to do more, get more into this guy because in a way, I'm kind of like I'm angry, but at the same time, I kind of want to learn more about this guy because I just can't believe he did all this and he has no remorse and no guilt and he's not once apologized and how did he con all these people? The show, man, you're watching it, you're like, okay, the whole time you're right. I was like, what's the point with her? What is he gonna do to her? And then at the end, we kind of like don't know exactly what happened. It's just her calling off the wedding, and that's that.
But she called off the wedding because she found out he was lying.
But
She caught
there
him
was
in the
never a
lies.
follow up about like what was their confrontation, like what was their conversation.
Well, that's the thing is I don't know that there ever was
Yeah, exactly.
like she never understood why her.
And it shows you that what I liked about the season was like they showed the coverage of like from another doctor's point of view, what they went, how it affected them trying to correct the mistakes of this one doctor experimenting on a patient. It's just crazy, like how it affects people from all aspects, and it's just crazy. I mean, there's a lot of things in medicine that people are experimenting with that they want to get the funding and make things happen. But this one was kind of like, I guess that's why he did it overseas, But
Well, yeah, because he couldn't get in trouble overseas necessarily. But, anyways, he did these surgery. I was trying to say that he got away with these surgeries because of the term that I can't recall right now. That's used for surgeries for people who are terminally ill, where I don't know what the term is, but that's why, because these people were dying anyways. So
they can blame their death on
complications from those.
Oh wow!
Other things.
Can you imagine that?
I know.
It was like, okay, well, hey, it's kind of like you create like let's say, there's some disease out there in the world, and it's like, well, if you get this medicine, you'll be fine. And then when they die, they're like, well, no.
But they already had pre-existing conditions.
It was because of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The medicine couldn't do anything for them. Right?
It's just, exactly. The same idea. So
crazy.
There was no liability.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. So there was no liability on him or the hospitals for the surgeries. So...
Well, yeah, the way that he went about to covering it up, like you said, he was using terminally ill patients. It's so that if it didn't work out, you just say, everything was fine. The surgery was a success. Everything was working. Mm-hmm. It held up.
When I left here, they were fine.
Everything was fine. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, their cancer,
body was too weak.
The cancer, or the weak, all these years, or maybe if we would have done this operation sooner, there was always something to fall back on, right? Like, he was, you guys had like 3 months left of life, and My surgery gave him an extra 3 months or an extra month, but the cancer was so advanced, or
Yeah.
yeah, all this wear and tear, all these other diseases, all this other surgeries, whatever. He always had a good scapegoat, and that's
Part
how he
of
got
that
away.
was part of his charm, though. That
Yeah,
was part of his con. That was part of just his personality. So again, another narcissist, right? And he could never take the blame for anything, right? He
no,
blamed everyone, just like the first doctor. Everything was blamed on someone else's lack of ability or the patient or whatever, but he never took the blame for anything. His work was impeccable.
yeah, and I think that's a cool thing about the show too. Like I know that we're concentrating because the title says Death and Doctor Death, and we're talking about two doctors that have done things that lead to people dying. And we're like, oh, well, they're really charismatic. They can manipulate. They know their stuff. They know their crafts. And how can they become doctors, or how can they do doctors when they take this oath? And but we're concentrating on like two negative things. But the cool thing about the show is that they're also showing you the opposite of that, right? Those doctors that do
Yeah.
take,
The ones that do care, that want the good reputation.
right, that they
Yeah.
love their job, they love helping people.
Yes.
And then they're like, and they show you the comparison between both of them. So that's the good thing, because in a way it's kind of like showing you like there's other doctors out there that do care, that do want you to be healthy and happy, and live your life, like, and they become part of your life, right? Especially if you're doing your things. Not all doctors eventually, they don't, you're not just a patient sometimes with a doctor. Sometimes we feel like that.
Most doctors, you're just a patient.
Right. Yeah,
You're just
sometimes
a
you feel like
number.
that. Yeah.
But
Then there's some other ones that, actually are pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I think I've only met one or two in my
I
life.
don't think I've ever. I like my OBG when our boys
yeah?
were born.
Yeah.
I loved her. She was great.
Yeah.
I wish I'd had her for the last two, but
Yeah. Yeah, she
we
was
weren't there
awesome.
anymore. So yeah, that
Yeah, those are
definitely
things.
puts us off of doctors.
Yeah,
That show makes it
yeah.
surgery. It puts us off of surgery.
Well, the second season for me was like when he was getting like articles printed out, and he was saying like false credits and awards. Like, he was a compulsive liar on top of it. That was
Yeah.
the difference. He was a compulsive liar. He said all these other things, and I know the Pope, and I know this, and I did this, and I'd received this. And then when people start investigating.
But it was all to make himself look great.
Right.
And it didn't help that at his parents' house, if that even was really his parents' house, had a picture of him with the Pope.
Right. No, you called it. You were
Yeah.
like, no, they're actors.
They have
like,
to be actors. I
and I
mean,
think
and that
you're
was
right.
never covered.
Yeah,
and that
no,
they never went back to that.
I think you're right. I think you're definitely right on that one.
Yeah.
Because of the Spain life.
Yeah.
Like you think, especially in an Italian mom.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Being okay with him showing up with someone
Right.
else when he's married.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Or like, like they're like talking about being hardcore Catholics and getting married in church.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Unless his family didn't know about his family in Spain.
That's a good point. But I doubt that.
I don't know. I'm just saying. It was, again, that whole
It kept
part
me
was,
up. It kept me
whole
up.
that part was confusing. So
Yeah, the season 2 was more like a binge. Like we watched that.
yeah. We spent a couple Saturdays up late.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good, right? That we're like actually putting it on the podcast. We're talking
Yeah,
about it. Like
yeah.
3 things that we watched that
Recently.
that we were like this like it created conversations between us.
Yeah.
I think we should have recorded ourselves immediately because
we're fresh in our heads because now we're definitely not saying everything we thought at the moment. But
no,
yeah,
I know
covering the gist.
Yeah, and I know in the beginning we were kind of like, well, yeah, like they are dying. So if the science helps to help other people, why not? But then, as the show went on, I kind of started changing. I started changing my point of view.
I think that's the whole point. It says, you see this doctor being so charismatic and they know what they're talking about and they know what they're actually doing. And he knew the science. He knew the science of what he was doing, which is why he kept changing. So he wasn't dumb. He actually did know. He wasn't willing to wait for the experimentation process to confirm which materials we're going to actually take.
But he took a lot of risks too at times.
Well, that was the problem though. So he wasn't willing to wait. He had no patience.
Yeah, but what was the one thing that drove him like all that? Is like, no, I need this. There's gonna be. I'm gonna have an interview about this, and I need to talk.
But that's what I'm saying. He had no patience.
No, exactly.
Because he wanted to get the funding.
He wanted to get the fame.
The
not
fame?
The funding. He
No, the
wanted
funding.
fame. No, he wanted more fame than anything.
Well,
And you started
probably.
seeing
But
it.
he would always talk about the funding. He goes, if we don't have this information available by this time, then this funding's out the door. Or we have
Right.
till this time. So he was all about the funding. I understand the fame and notoriety
Yeah,
portion.
but I think that's a part of it. But I also think that like he showed it because I kind of catched it on other things like, oh well, no, we have this press, and I already told the press this, and I have this article coming out, and I got this person doing this interview. So I was like, oh look at this, like that narcissistic, like self-centered crap again. And then where it showed
It's
it
a
was
hustle.
at
It's
the
all a
end
hustle.
when he's like, I'm gonna walk out like this, and you think you should put the camera right here, and he's telling the people how to do the shots and everything, and I was like, yep, there it is, and so
Just to make him look good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, that was
Charismatic
that.
Mo.
I mean, watch out for people who talk too nicely.
I think the other thing was just the reports, like the stuff that he put out, like the stuff that he said, because I'm like, so even if let's say one day something's wrong with me and I start doing research, can I actually trust what I'm reading?
You
Because some
can't.
doctor
You can't.
wrote
Just
this
like
paper, but he could be
exactly.
like
You
that
can't trust anything you read. You can't trust anything you hear. It's sad. It's really sad that we live in a world where you cannot trust. You can't trust. You can't trust the information that is fed to you. And it sucks.
right.
Like people can have an opinion about everything, but they don't have all the facts. They have a little bit of facts from wherever source they got the information from. Like we're guilty of that. You know, we'll read an article here, an article there, and then maybe they correlate and we'll be like, oh yeah, that's enough. You know, let's talk about that, you know, or we'll have a discussion on something. And then later on we find out that, oh no, there's more to it. And then we're like, oh, well, okay, I got this information now. So and then it might contradict what you read before on top of that, you know.
No,
Simple thing.
Yeah,
you know,
you're right.
fat is bad.
Yeah.
Fat is bad. Carbs are good. And now it's the other way.
Yeah, right.
Now it's carbs are bad and fat is good.
Don't cook in animal fat.
Yeah, don't cook in animal fat. You know,
Use canola
use
oil.
canola. No. It used to be use Crisco. Use Crisco. Crisco is for all your
butter is horrible for you.
Butter's horrible for
Get
you.
this,
Use
you know.
Crisco.
It's not
and
butter,
then
but
you
it's-
find out Crisco was used to oil the damn machines during the wars.
Yeah. Is it true? Maybe maybe it's a lie.
Who knows? You're right. Maybe even that was a lie.
You're right. Like,
What about Listerine? Listerine was marketed as a household cleaner and then eventually turned into mouthwash. Which one's true?
I never knew that.
I'll have to look that one up, but I heard that a long time ago and I was like, what? If I'm wrong, I will retract it. I will let you guys know in the next episode.
Nah. I was like,
I'll let you know the next time if I'm wrong, but
I
I'm
looked up
pretty sure
like
that's
a
true.
Listerine myth just for the heck of it, but apparently the main myth is that it causes oral cancer.
It says,
Oh yeah, popped up right away.
it says Louis chemist named Joseph Lawrence, and this is a Google search, invented Listerine. The alcohol-based formula was sold as a surgical antiseptic as well as treatment for cleaning cuts, scrapes, and other wounds. It was also marked to dentists for oral care. Later, it was pitched as a floor cleaner and a cure for gonorrhea.
Gonorrhea, huh? I mean, don't get me wrong. I can imagine why it was used as a cleaner because of the alcohol content on it. And I don't know if you ever use like isopropyl alcohol to wipe down things and clean stuff. It does create a pretty good...
and you can't even trust what you read because here's another one that says that it was created by someone else named Joseph Lister. It says Listerine, your go-to mouthwash, was once sold as a floor cleaner. Listerine is named after English doctor Joseph Lister. Listerine used to be sold as a general germicide suitable as a floor cleaner, feet washer, as well as a potential cure for gonorrhea. So But originally it says it was invented by a chemist named Joseph Lawrence. So,
Okay, Listerine was invented in 1879 as a medical antiseptic made from essential oils. Later, it was also marketed as a hair tonic, gonorrhea cure, dandruff reducer, and floor cleaner. So if I put it in my hair, what? Yeah, I'll be minty fresh, right?
it says here, Crisco, first used to make candles, was invented in pre-Civil War days by candle maker William Proctor and soap maker James Gamble. Get it? Procter and Gamble. The meat industry controlled the prices of lard and tallow, which were necessary to make soap and candles. So they invented Crisco.
That's crazy, but yeah, it just puts you in that. And it's funny though because it does affect your life sometimes. Like your mom was telling me about some seeds and something that she was doing some research that some doctor found some results and they were great for certain things and for cures. And I was like, automatically my mind was like, well, I wouldn't believe that because I just saw the show and this guy lied about everything. So I would do more research if you want
Well,
to.
my mom is unfortunately a very trusting soul, and she's definitely one of those people who, if it sounds good to her because she believes in it,
Right.
like it's already in her wavelength type of thing,
But
she's going to totally believe
aren't we
whatever
all
people
like
say.
that?
Yeah, we're all like
Right.
that. We're all definitely
We
like
all
that.
have that,
But I
right?
think I'm more cynical than my mom. I'm definitely more cynical than my
Okay.
mom. I'm not as trusting as my mom is, and it just really annoys me. She's so trusting because, yeah, like you said, like she tells us about these miracle. I've had my whole life listening to my mom talk about miracle things that she's discovered based on whatever she's learning at that time.
True.
And I get granted, I grew up really healthy, chock loads of vitamins, chock loads of exercise, like we were healthy kids.
Well,
but
I mean, your mom, I never knew about quinoa or chia, and your mom was talking about it when we were like dating, like
yeah,
when we were first.
but we've
But that
learned.
was, but how many? But yeah, but how many years before it became like a fad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like just I want to say within the last, I don't know, 5, 8 years, I started hearing about quinoa or chia.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I
Well,
heard
I
about
grew
that
up
before.
eating quinoa because that's like something they eat in Peru. So
No, but I was just tripping
like-
out at that aspect. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, she knew about that.
yeah,
She
well, I
talked
think
about it.
there's things that people, especially older generations, there's just things they know because they grew up with that, right? And the younger generations forgot about it or they just don't care. So when it comes back, right, someone says, "Oh my gosh, I found this miracle thing." It's like, nah, like I've been eating that for years. Like it's not.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
nothing
and that was the
new.
thing. That was the thing, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
usually where I was going with it. Like even your brothers have said that. Like, oh yeah, somebody came up to me and was like, oh, I found this miracle thing, blah blah.
Yeah.
It's really good, and it keeps you, you're not munching out as much, and blah blah. And it's the
Whatever it is.
seed, blah blah blah. And then it's like, yeah, my mom said that to us when we were kids. Like, I know what that is.
Yeah.
How can you know? My mom like introduced that to us. Like,
Yeah.
she talked about
I mean,
it.
like I said, I grew up having to make my own herbal supplements and just having lots of vitamins in general. And we ate very well, so all spectrums. And food was healthier back then to begin with. And everything was freshly made. Like we rarely ate out, type of thing. So I grew up very healthy in that sense. My point is that my whole life, my mom has been finding something miraculous.
Right.
And to be at her age now in her 70s and she's still finding miraculous things, I'm just like,
No,
really
but here's the
over
thing
it.
though. Your mom seems pretty healthy for her age.
For her age, yeah,
Right,
she's
and
actually
everything.
really healthy
So,
for her age.
Maybe all this crap
Just not her
has
memory.
helped out. Yeah,
Well, her
yeah.
memory's starting to go, but
Yeah, but maybe all this crap has
Maybe.
worked out for her, right?
maybe.
Right? I mean,
It's just good genetics too.
Yeah.
Could just be genetics. Right? There's
Could be.
people who drink and smoke till they're 100 years old. It's just good genetics without any
is
cancer.
it good genetics when all the other people in the life didn't live that long?
They got the good set of genes. It skips. It skips.
Well, you were talking about food and stuff. You were telling me earlier that our oldest boy was getting bullied because of food and eating out. And
Oh, the arches.
yeah,
So our kids have never had McDonald's. Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
what?
What? So our kids have never had McDonald's. I had it growing up. I ate it. I know you used to work for McDonald's,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So, I
my first
mean,
job, I think.
maybe we're being hypocrites, but we don't really do fast food. I mean, if we do fast food, it's In-N-Out and Farmer Boys, and we only do the others in like a super pinch. Like, okay, we're gonna be out for a while. I don't have time to stop at a restaurant, so let's just run through whatever drive-through is next, type of thing.
Road trip. There's nothing
Yeah,
else to eat.
there's nothing else to eat. So we're really not big fast food fans.
No.
Especially not anymore. I
Right.
would say it's changed over the years. I'm not saying the never, but there was a point where I think
Now,
we
I
ate
will
out a
admit
lot.
that there was a time in my life when that is all I ate,
Was fast food.
which is part of the reason why I got so freaking fat,
Mm-hmm.
right? But yeah, so when we had our kids, we were like, "There's no way that we're gonna feed them that crap." There was something going on at that time about nuggets,
With McDonald's,
Yeah,
right?
with
There was like a
McDonald's.
bunch of stuff. So
and so we were like,
and they
"Yep."
revamped their whole thing after that.
Right.
Like their whole image they revamped
But
afterwards.
like we were saying, I worked there and I saw the food and I saw how it was treated and I saw how it was frozen and how I saw how everything,
yeah.
So usually it happens for people sometimes when they work at a place and they see the things or how things
How
are
it's
treated.
prepared. Mhm.
I mean, they did a lot of good stuff. Like they were very meticulous about like their cooked meats and how long they're cooked and everything. But when they're frozen patties, there's a difference, right? And or how they're frozen or how they come. So for me, I was like, I really don't care for it. Then when that whole McDonald's thing was going on, we were like, yeah, no, I'm glad we don't feed that to our kids. And then we're like, well, we were more careful what we ate.
Yeah.
We started becoming
And
more
we've
careful.
just in general been more careful with what we eat as the years have gone on.
And it's like one of those things, right? Like I always say it, and I said it before here. Like I never knew what fast food was until I was in high school.
Yeah.
My dad, we always ate at home. Everything was at home. So yeah, definitely, it's kind of like one of those things for my kids. When they get older, maybe they'll try it out.
What he had told me was that one of his friends at school was like, dude, why haven't you had McDonald's?
He was like,
bruh, you're so mid.
you're so mid, bruh.
You haven't had
Let's
McDonald's.
go, bruh.
You haven't had McDonald's. Yeah, we've been basing on him with all that lately. And he's just, I just haven't. Like, I'd rather have In-N-Out. I'd rather have Farmer Boys. Like, he goes, there's better burgers out there than McDonald's. And then he's like, oh no, but McDonald's fries are the best, especially with ice cream. He's like, I don't know, I haven't tried it. So I told him, I said, well, I remember them being good, but I guess we could do a taste test. I told him, maybe we'll go buy some fries from McDonald's and we'll go buy some fries from like Carl's Jr. We'll go buy some fries from Jack in the Box or whatever, and we'll go get some milkshakes from each of them and dip them and see which one's the best and see what your opinion is on them. And I was like, I really don't know that they're the best, but and I remember that there was like a whole thing about what they were being injected with and, all this different stuff. So this was just like a conversation he and I had about,
Right.
how can we figure out who's the best? But in all honesty, we don't eat that much junk foods. Like for me to go drive around to every single place to buy
I want to do it
fry.
now. You just said it. I want to go do it. It's like
We're
just
gonna
think
have
of
to like tag team because when they're cold, they're disgusting.
no. It's just go. I mean, literally on a certain block on our way home. I think we have the Carl's, we have the Mickey's, we got what else?
Let's see. Right here, the nearest to us, we've got a Carl's Jr., Mickey D's, and yeah, that's it. They're almost right next to each other.
So maybe we could just do those two
Just
and
do those
compare
two.
them, right?
And then further down is a Farmer Boys.
Oh, we get the Sonic.
Oh, and we got Sonic too. Yep, Sonic and Farmer Boys. Yep. We
Just
could
stop and
we
like-
could test those four.
One large fry, one milkshake.
Yeah, one large fry, one milkshake from each location.
Or like get a burger, like just a plain cheeseburger, please. just cheeseburger,
And
cheeseburger,
just
cheeseburger.
taste
We'll get
it.
here, we'll just cut it in like 4 pieces. Like, all right,
Taste
look,
testing.
Here you go.
That could be an episode right there. The results of our taste test. But yeah, so he was being made fun of for not eating Mickey D's, and He
what?
doesn't know what he's missing because he's never had it.
So sometimes with food, you always have those arguments. Like I remember having an argument about burritos out of all things. They're like, "What? That place? Nah, man, that's garbage. You got to go over here." I was like, "Well, I really like that place." And then it happened to me one time, and the guys at work to this day laugh about it. It's like, "Oh, this place has the best burritos and blah blah." I was like, "All right, well, I like this other place." But if you guys really like that place, I mean, it's not my day, so it's for you.
Yeah.
So we'll go from there.
Well,
I go get the damn food, and I tasted it, and I was like,
this is disgusting.
and to this day they laugh like, you just ordered the wrong burritos. Like, dude, how can you say that?
That also reminds me of my brother who's been out of the country.
Right.
He's out visiting his wife's family, and all he does is complain about the food, but he's like, they say it's the most delicious thing. They say it's the best thing. They say it's the best bakery, and they say it's the best taco stand, and they say it's the best restaurant. And he's like, and it all is disgusting and flavorless. That's all he covers. He's like,
well, we all do have different taste buds, I guess.
Yeah.
But it could also be one of those, like, maybe they don't want to go on the trip, and then they just hate everything about it,
Well, and then I guess he was telling me that some of the family members for the first time are coming to America, and
No, please don't.
They're coming for like business or something for the first time, and he's like, I can't wait for them to taste American food and understand what real flavor is. Like,
no, but see, it's one of those things where they might come and it's like, oh, this is horrible.
Yeah, and that's what I told him. I said they still might think it's horrible.
Did I ever tell you about the story about my friend and the pozole?
No.
Oh my god.
Oh, maybe you did, but I don't remember.
All right, so quick story, guys. It was like hilarious, right? Pozole is a Mexican dish, soup type, right? Usually made out of pork meat, I believe. But I recently learned that there's a lot of people that eat it with chicken.
I never knew.
In case you didn't know what pozole was, just a quick crash course. So I had a friend, and every time we would go somewhere to eat, this is like our late teens, and we would be drinking. And in TJ, there's places where they sell a lot of menudos or pozoles on the weekends. So we would go get some pozoles. Or a friend would say that my mom made some pozole or my sister made some pozole, blah, blah. And he would always say, oh, man, this is horrible, man. Oh, man, this is crap, dude. Like, this is so bad. My mom's pozole is the best. And we're like, shit, all right. And we've heard this for so long. And then it get to a point where, we all had cars, or we had a friend that had a car, we drove or whatever, we partied, and then he said, hey, my mom made pozole, like, you guys want to come over this weekend and have some? I said, well, is it okay, can we bring something? It's like, no, I told her to make some pozole for us and everything. So it's like, all right, cool. And we went to eat the damn pozole. Fucking shoot me, this was like the worst thing I ever tasted. I like literally thought like somebody put it in their mouth, chewed it, and spit it out back into the pot. Borderline, it stunk like freaking throw up. It was horrible. It was straight garbage. All right,
but that's your opinion, because to him it wasn't
my opinion, because it was the other two dudes. So three of us were like, oh shit, and we looked at each other like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah, but to that guy, because it's his mom and it's what he grew up with.
Eating.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So for him, it's like the best thing.
Yeah. So that's what I'm getting at. But yeah, to me, it's so hilarious. Like, oh yeah, my mom makes it. And we're like, I think I always try to be really nice. And I think I try to eat like at least half the bowl. The other guys were kind of like halfway, like, oh no, this is too much. I'm not that hungry. I was like, I ate before I left my house. This was like spur of the moment. He just came and told us, like, but I had to taste it. He's been talking for so long about how great it is and how he grew up with this. I was like, it's so good.
You lied.
You mind if I have some to go?
He is so bad. You're trying to make her feel good.
I'm so full, but I'm really enjoying it because, so I can have some for later. And like, yeah, sure. I was like, I'll just take my plate. It's cool, right? Like, yeah. I was like, all right. And I was like, that tastes.
What did your dad say?
He just smelled it. He's like, "What did you do? What did you do?
What you
Did
put
spit
it
on
in?
it? Yeah, it's too cold for me. You know,
Yeah,
I like
he
this."
eats it like boiling.
I was like, "All right, cool, pops." I was like, "Don't do it. Don't do it." He was like, "All right, okay." And then my brother ate it. And he was like, "I think it was bad, dude."
Yeah, I don't think I've had. I don't think I mean, I have aversions to food as I've gotten older, but
It happened to us one time with barbacoa. Remember?
oh my god,
They're like, "Oh, this is the best barbacoa, blah blah." And we go to eat it. We're like, "Where's the flavor? Where's the truth?"
yeah, we're all like, this is just meat with no flavor.
And you know what's worse? I was talking about it to a couple of people, and they're like, "What are you talking about? That place is delicious." I was like, "What?"
Oh my
I was like,
god.
"I got
No.
diarrhea."
Like neither one of us liked it. We were, I guess maybe we're just used to certain flavors in our food and it just didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
Yeah, and it goes with movies and everything else,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
know, like, "Oh, that movie sucked." "Oh, I liked it."
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The opinion of each person.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, somebody over there is like, "I hated La La Land. That movie was horrible."
Yeah. Or didn't care for Echo, or I would never watch Dr. Death.
Yeah, it's like why? It was like I watched the show. I was like, "This is horrible. Why did I watch this? Because those two jackasses told me to watch it."
No, we're not saying to watch it. We're just saying if you watch it.
I did.
We
I was like, "Hey, people watch this."
I said
Like,
we this is what we watched and we enjoyed it. So, anyways, well, we hope you guys enjoyed our little rant about movies and food.
yeah, thank you for your time, guys.
And we hope you have a great rest of your week.
Yeah,
Take care.
take care.
Bye.
Peace.